On location Nanaimo. We're coming to you live from the unceded and ancestral territories of the Nanaimo people. Deep bow, deep love, deep respect to the original caretakers of these lands. My name's Jordan Dack, poet, producer, songwriter, and all-around creative troublemaker, and your host in this creative deep dive, Creative or Die. I am sitting here with Amber, an educator, a publisher, an artist in the true sense of the word, and I'm feeling very honored to be sitting here and getting the chance to deep dive with you.
Thanks for being here and welcome to my studio.
Thank you. What a cool studio.
Thank you very much.
You want to just show people around for a minute?
Yeah, so we've got a whole bunch of anime and gaming figures sprawled out here, some of which were picked up on location in Japan.
Oh, cool.
Others of which have been collected in the years since. We've also got quite a few art supplies laid out. I like to keep everything at the ready so that way I can, just grab things at a moment's notice. And, it makes a kind of cool backdrop here too.
Yeah.
So.
It sure does. And would you say that gaming and fine arts is the collision of the two that I'm witnessing behind you right now? Is this a typical meeting of mediums, or or is this somewhat rare and specific to you?
Well, I guess it's a bit specific to me. I know that, of course, anime and gaming are quite popular in terms of pop culture.
Pop culture, yeah.
But in terms of the fine art world, there's a lot of resistance there. And given that I kind of grew up, watching Saturday morning cartoons, drawing a lot of fan art, replicating cartoons that I've seen, when I, completed art school after I did that whole thing where it's, you don't draw anime in art school. That's just embarrassing. Let's not do that. So you learn your foundational skills, you learn from observation, which are all really important, foundational skills that an artist should have. But at the same time, all of this stuff has been really, really dear to me throughout my life. And as it is with lots of folks, a lot of people grow up with this. A lot of people, it's really deep, meaningful moments with the media they're watching. It kind of changes who you are as a person.
Right.
So for me, once I graduated my undergrad, so my bachelor's degree, I kind of got back into this in a really big way. So if you can believe it, this room didn't have any of this merchandise or stuff around until really recently, in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And then ever since, I've been kind of, in my master's, exploring the collision of video games and fine art specifically. And now that I'm at UVic, now that I've completed that master's degree, I ended up teaching video games as a fine art medium in the art history and visual cultures department.
Incredible. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I caused us to jump forward a little bit. I want to ask you, we're going to play a little game, a little true or false game.
Let's do it.
And maybe it'll be a quick way to just hit some of the background points.
For sure.
Or maybe none of them will be true. We'll see. Okay. So I'll list a statement and you say whether it's true or false. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, here we go. True or false? Amber founded Sad Girl Review in 2018, the same year she graduated from Vancouver Island University.
That one is true.
That one's true.
I noticed a lot of my peers, especially since we're in Nanaimo, had a bit of a hard time getting their work out there. So I thought, maybe I'd create a platform that might help them out and others as well. But this is kind of where it started.
Very cool. Okay. Okay. True or false? Amber holds a Master in Fine Arts from the University of Lethbridge and recently completed a Master of Education in Educational Leadership in June 2025.
Oh, well, I did admit to the first one, but do I have 2 master's degrees?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
You do?
I spent too long in school.
Wow, I was going to say false. This has to be false. No,
I've spent way too long in university, but I love it. So yeah, when I got into teaching at UVic, I realized that when you were doing your master's degree, well, you're kind of taught teaching in an abstract way or through more experiential opportunities, like being a teaching assistant. There's actually not really a setup to help people learn to be professors.
Right.
So I got really into thinking about that, and that's how I ended up doing another master's degree.
Oh, that is super cool. Okay. Okay. Sad Girl Review has a rigorous submission process requiring contributors to hold at least a bachelor's degree in a relevant field. True or false?
So false. So false. Despite the fact that I've got 2 master's degrees and I've spent a lot of time in school, I really don't believe everyone else should have to do that. And I'm really into meeting people where they're at, and then, you know, preserving what they can do in the moment. I feel like that has a lot of value that isn't being captured by outlets that expect people to be more polished or put together.
Right. Capturing what they can do in the moment as an almost archival process, or just the truth of what is present for that artist in that moment, or both?
Both of those things. Yeah. I like to preserve where they were at, but also, you know that that's part of their journey of growth too.
Yeah, yeah, a little snapshot. Okay, true or false, Amber? In 2017, Amber spent approximately 24 hours stenciling numbers onto 403 stairs at VIU in bubblegum-pink spray paint, calling the work an end and a beginning. This has to be false.
It's so highly specific that it's really either true or false. It could go either way, but it is true. When I was finishing up my undergrad at VIU, I got really interested in, you know, like what VIU is as a place, what it means to graduate from school, what progress even means. And I don't know if you've ever been to VIU, been to the campus, but it's a very like vertical campus.
I have been there. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it's to get to my class, like it's like walking 10 minutes straight up a hill both ways to be that old person. I got really in my head thinking about this process of like working really hard to go up a hill to get to classes, and when I would turn around at the top of the hill and look back, it would be this absolutely gorgeous view because you'd see all the Nanaimo harbor and the boats and all of the streets leading down into the water. And I just thought, you know, as an artist, I'm like, I can't make anything this inherently beautiful. Like it just already is in the world, right? So I started thinking, like, how can I show people what it's like to climb these stairs, to think about what progress is, you know, to think about, you know, what it means to experience a place as a work of art. And I was studying sculpture at the time, and I thought that could be more meaningful than anything that I could actually sculpt or make, is to activate the stairs as a sculpture in and of themselves. So it was a really interesting process of like putting in a lot of labor to not only be able to spray paint the school consensually, which was a lot, but they did say yes.
Yep. Oh, there's. Yep. Oh. Please continue.
I don't think that's me.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's me.
Gotcha.
We'll just ignore that entirely.
Gotcha. But yeah, so it was a really meaningful project, and I was really happy to do that. But at the same time, I was also really happy to finish it.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. And was it a process to get to have the school allow you to do that, or was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it took a lot of consent from the school to be able to spray paint things, and to be able to be out there after hours, to be able to, you know, change their property. I guess. So.
Yeah. Is there a question about that? Have you done much art that did not have that level of consent in the world?
Well, nothing I'd admit to.
Yeah.
Nothing illegal.
I did this the other day with a guest who you know, spent a lot of time in graffiti and street art.
Oh.
And I asked a couple questions that were just like, Jordan, I cannot answer that question.
Just look at your stony face going,
I'm like, I'm so sorry.
I have done nothing illegal ever.
We move on quickly. That's
no, fine. But for what it's worth, no, I'm pretty good. I've always asked for permission, and I kind of want to be, you know, in cahoots, in collaborating with the community as opposed to, you know, working against them.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, hearing their responses to the work after it was after it was installed, like with all of the parties' consent, is a really cool feeling. And I don't know, one that I haven't really been able to find in a lot of other art forms, like making stuff in the public and changing like a public space. And then again, just hearing the response to that from everyone is satisfying.
And the color choice, the bubblegum-pink, was that an obvious choice for you, or did you deliberate? And
I do want to say I deliberated, but it wasn't too much. I'm a really big fan of very vibrant colors, and especially pink is such a gendered color. And given I started Sad Girl Review just slightly after I did those stairs, I was thinking a lot about the role of gender and making it visible, and even performing it to a degree. So when I thought about, what colors would people expect, a set of numbers to be on a stairs at a university? Well, we'd expect practical colors like yellow or white to denote numbers going upstairs if it was like an industrial process or something that was administrative. So I was like, I didn't want it to be that. So I was like, okay, if I do it pink, people will already have built-in assumptions. Maybe a girl did it.
Right.
Maybe it's not, construction related, since it's bright pink. What construction worker would use bright pink to mark a space? I mean, I wish they would, but it doesn't tend to be common. So yeah, the pink was a deliberate choice, but it ended up kind of having more associations, even than I kind of initially anticipated.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, one last one here. True or false? Amber has taught workshops and classes at the Nanaimo Art Council, Nanaimo Art Gallery, and Ladysmith Waterfront Gallery, among other institutions.
That is also really correct.
Wow.
I'm quite active locally, and I've got a pretty robust teaching practice. I've taught everybody from 5-year-olds up to your grandma and to university students. So lots of different levels of learning, and I like every single one of them for different reasons.
It sounds, getting to know you a bit before this interview, I really got a sense of like the depth of your art and your artistic practice. At what point did you know that education was going to become such a big part of your practice as well?
Oh, that's a good question. I think when I was starting to wrap up my university degree, I had the privilege of getting a Canada Summer Jobs application approved by Nanaimo Art Gallery, and I ended up working in their art education department. And I was kind of thrown in without too much basis in that. I wasn't even quite sure that I wanted to do art education, but like watching, a 5-year-old's eyes like light up when they see the magic of watercolor paint, or like seeing somebody who didn't realize that they actually know how to draw more than they think suddenly come alive, like in their chair when they've got just a little bit of instruction, and being able to build people up as well when they're making art, I found was really a valuable process, because it's like being able to be people's cheerleader as they're making things. It's a really vulnerable thing to make something in front of people. So to support people, to cheer them on, and to be part of that context became really important to me. So that's when I knew, okay, I've got to do this in some capacity. And as much as I really love doing the workshops and the one-offs, post-secondary seems to be largely where I've landed, and what I really like, because I feel like a lot of like young people in their, late teens, 20s, 30s, they're finding themselves in such an interesting way, and I really want to be a part of that.
Yeah, I love that. I know so many people who I can see the art within them, like and they can feel it within themselves.
Yes.
And yet they don't allow themselves the space to not be as good as they want to be, and they'll approach some sort of project and they feel that they failed, and then they'll walk away for months, or a few people years. If from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you've gotten good at creating space for that, and somehow inviting people to stick around and keep going. Do you agree with that? And if so, like what do you do? How do you do it?
Well, for me, like being an artist, I found that I'm my own number one worst critic. The first person to tear down, what you do will often be you, right? So to be the person that's kind of in the classroom or around people when they're making art and realizing like, I can show people skills, but I can also be their cheerleader. I can counter that voice a little bit.
Yeah.
And I see it sometimes, I'll see that inner voice kind of in someone's head and via their expression on their face when they're working on a drawing, and I'll walk over and I'll say, hey, you're doing this aspect of it really, really well. That's a really strong moment. You should lean into that and experiment with that a little bit more. And then being a witness to that person's little success tends to lead to like bigger wins. So I'm not I'm no Gordon Ramsay style chef or art teacher to borrow that kind of figure as an analogy. Those guys really bum me out. So I really enjoy like being people's first champion.
Yeah.
Like that's what I know I needed, and people were there for me. So I want to do that for others.
Yeah. Okay. Now, your own artistic practice, it spans a few different mediums, right? Can you tell us about those mediums and maybe if there's a common thread between them, like what you see it is?
Oh, yeah. This one's one I wrestle with a lot because I do a lot of different things, right? My definition of art I keep really broad, almost on purpose, because if it's really nailed down, I have to really worry about, is this thing I'm doing art?
Right.
So I'd rather just keep that wide open. But that said, under that umbrella of art that I make, I do a lot of watercolor painting and illustration. That's the most typically defined as art sort of thing I do. I also do some video arts. I've also done like video games. That one's really fun, but they take a long time to make.
Yeah, that's right.
There's so many different assets and components. So video games, but I'm slow at them. Publications, which involves like graphic design and editing. So I kind of even approach graphic design, I like to say, more as an artist than as a graphic designer. So those are just the ones I can think of off the top of my head, but I've also done public sculpture and just about anything else. I'll try it once.
Incredible. So you said you approach graphic design more as an artist than a graphic designer. Can you speak to that for a minute? Oh,
goodness. Yeah. So when I grew up, I didn't tend to grow up around a lot of art that was like paintings hung on walls. But what was around was a lot of like books, a lot of magazines, a lot of flyers, which seems like a weird thing to kind of conjure up artistically, but I loved looking at them and seeing how things were laid out on them, and then I would try and imitate that. So instead of, being in a museum and copying Rembrandts as people would do in centuries past, if I got a really cool pizza flyer or something like that, I would go to my way to copy it and try and figure out, why did they put the phone number there? Why is this tagline here? And then I got really into looking at books and magazines in the same kind of way. And that kind of led to me making publications, because I'm like, well, I don't fully understand why some of these choices are made or know some of the ins and outs of, if I had to get this object to print, would it cut off in the, in the margins or what have you. But working digitally, creating publications digitally, it kind of allows you to skirt a lot of the traditional knowledge that one would need to be a graphic designer, but allows you to kind of play with some of the same tools. So I will never encroach on somebody designing books or flyers. They do really great work as graphic designers, but I'm an artist imitating them and kind of having fun with those same formats, just in my own artistic way.
Now, there's a chance that we might end up going down a rabbit hole here, but when I'm looking at a magazine or advertisement, I also tend to notice these things, and like, the amount of space that was left between the type and the edge of the page, and and I'll notice that if it's too close, I'll feel some internal discomfort.
Yes.
And things like, just like the hierarchy. I can notice like a somatic experience in my body of discomfort when certain maybe rules are being broken. I don't really know the rules of graphic design, so I'm just assuming that they are. Do you think that that is an experience that is learned? Or do you think there's something about the space and the hierarchy and whatnot that there's like, it can't be universal. There's no, I mean, could it?
I don't think, I feel like there are concrete things that you definitely do need to know if you wanted to pursue graphic design as a career. Like, what is a gutter? What is a margin? What is the bleed? What is kerning?
Yeah.
These are all things I figured out in more recent years, so I can feel like I'm throwing around $5 words there.
Yeah, you really know what you're talking about here.
Well, when I first started doing Sad Girl Review, I just found a copy of like Microsoft Publisher online. It's not even software you can get anymore, and I was just so fascinated with it as a tool that I found myself starting to make books and then think about how could I fill pages. So that's when I started playing with it, and through doing things wrong, I tended to discover things the right way. So a lot of the earlier issues of Sad Girl Review are very freewheeling, like, graphic design is my passion. I love putting things on a paper. And they're very intuitive. I like to use that word generously. Whereas later issues where I actually started learning about some principles of graphic design, kind of fed by that passion and exploration, you actually start to see more of the sophistication in some of the decisions, but it's still a little bit freewheeling too.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's part of the more artistic approach to it. And I mean, of course, in art, sometimes it's the breaking of the rules that is the art. So
exactly. I always think of the fine artist John Baldessari. He had this series of photographs called Wrong, and they were things where he would intentionally make incorrect compositional choices in the photos. So I almost kind of think of some of my publications like that. You know, I don't necessarily do them right, but they have a lot of spirit, and maybe there'll be something in there that'll go, why did she put it like that?
Yeah.
A little bit engaging.
I love that. Yeah, it reminds me of those posts, almost like those clickbait posts. Sorry, not to compare any art to clickbait. I apologize, but you know, there is sort of a comparison here where somebody will post something and intentionally spell a word wrong, just so that the comment section is just filled with engagement.
Yes.
And doing something that makes you uncomfortable is engaging, you know, and in a much more refined and in-depth way than a comment on Instagram, but you know what I'm saying. It's it's a really interesting approach to break the rule, to get conversation, or just to have somebody feel something, you know. Yeah,
and that was kind of it. Like, when I made Sad Girl Review, a lot of the publications that were out there at the time are like what I like to call like Times New Roman size 12 publications, which is fine, but it's like a standard font, very little in the way of imagery. It's like a uniform size throughout. And for me, that's not how poetry or art really came alive. So with my kind of odd and intuitive graphic design decisions, I would pair photos with poems that I thought would work or would be interesting, or I'd add like a really flamboyantly large title to the page. And that kind of, you know, just hands-on, I'm going to DIY my graphic design approach actually really resonated with people more than I thought it would. Just because there is so much of that Times New Roman size 12 kind of journal out there. And those are great. Those are needed too. But I feel like they occupied a very different sphere. And that's why, you know, what I do tends to fall into the art publication side of things as opposed to the publication side of things.
Was the Sad Girl Review project, was that something that felt right for you that ended up being right for many other people as well? Is that...
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it too, because, you know, being a young woman coming out of the arts program, I was making a lot of stuff that was very pink, that was very stereotypically girly, that had to do more with pop culture or musing over my feelings on something. And I didn't want to not be who I was, because I think being inauthentic is really something that people can sense. So I couldn't pretend to be someone that magazines or galleries wanted. I just didn't have it in me. So I thought other people might be hitting the same kind of wall too, and it turns out I was really right. Unfortunately, but at the same time, it's good to have company and to kind of know that that's what the landscape is, and to be able to do something about that to a degree.
And if you were to start another project, another publication, let's say, or anything else, another project right now, what would it look like? If...
That's a tricky one. Lately, since I've been working in so many mediums for so long, I've been thinking more about like how I can start to meld them, if that makes sense. I've been trying to think about what would a publication look like if it was pulled into like a video game format or a video game engine. So that's something that I've kind of been playing with lately.
Oh, say more about that, please.
So
if a publication was pulled into a video game.
A video game engine. Yeah. So video games all need what's called an engine to run. And there's ones that are less complex and more complex, and just kind of like how I approached graphic design, I decided I'm going to make video games. I don't care that I don't know anything.
Let's go.
So run at it. That's another piece of advice I've got. Just do it anyway.
Do it.
But I was learning the engine RenP, which runs on the Python programming language. But I started using that engine to make video games because it's got a tutorial component where it's all copy and paste. So it's really straightforward to learn and really inviting that way. And I've been working on other video game projects where I've been contributing some of like my watercolors to other people's RenP games.
Oh, cool.
So they'll use them as backgrounds or characters or what have you. So I started to think, is there a way that I can, kind of combine some of these things? Can I take my watercolors, can I make them into a publication, and then that ends up in a video game engine where you could click through it in a different way.
Wow.
So it's still in the experimental stage, but that's something that I've been chipping away at.
But you're a very busy person too. Hey.
To say the least.
Do you find that, because it sounds to me that like art is something one does, but it also art is something that you are as well, and if those are the ideas that are popping into your head, that's a great example of being your art. How do you find time with all the teaching that you do, the workshops? How do you find time for your own art and your own momentum and evolution? And
it gets tricky sometimes, for sure. I really have to make a stake, like claim my time a lot of the time. I kind of, I don't know, have a built-in thing where I kind of feel antsy if it's been about 2 or 3 days and I haven't made anything. I try and keep making really low stakes and frequent, so that way I don't get too hung up on things or too upset about what the outcome is. I'm just doing the making regularly, and that's really what's key. My teaching, post-secondary teaching eats up my schedule from September to December and then January until April. But luckily during summers like now, I can kind of really fly out what I want to do, and because of that, I'm always making lists throughout the year. As soon as June rolls around, you need to do this.
Yeah. I know all about those lists. I've got a few of those.
So I'm always staying busy, but it's not a bad thing.
No. Do you find that your classes also, do you find a way to weave your own artistic evolution into the classes you're teaching? Or?
Very, very much so. Lately, I've been revamping my own website, for example, thinking about frameworks and how that functions, and I figured out, it's actually really easy to install a Wikipedia shell on a domain.
Yeah.
It's not actually that hard. So for my classes in the last year, instead of writing essays, I've had people make Wikipedia entries on our own class Wikipedia. That way we're contributing to our own knowledge collectively as a class, but it's also a little more fun than writing an essay.
Yeah.
So
that's brilliant. Now, you're definitely operating at the crossroads of tech and art and gaming, of course. Does this cause you to think about the future of art and tech? often, and what does it look like?
Yes, it really does. It's a very strange position to be somebody who's a very traditional, hands-on person. Like, I love making my watercolors. I love watching paint move around on a piece of paper. But at the same time, I have lived most of my life digitally or alongside the digital. So I've been, throughout my life, always making things, but then trying to figure out how those fit into online contexts. So that's part of my motivation for, learning website development, for learning publications that are digital, for learning video games. These are all digital forms. And I think that they're ones that we interact with really frequently. So how can I bring my physical analog self into this world as I am, and kind of be honest about that, but also still embrace what's new and stay relevant that way.
And why is it important to take the organic experience of art and bring it into a digital medium?
I think oftentimes the digital will feel a little bit like sterile. It doesn't feel very human. I mean, I feel like we're dealing with this with AI right now, right? Like, we can have text spat back at us really quickly in this really polished way, and it just doesn't seem very personal or authentic. So I find showing up online with my messy watercolors, when you see my thumbprint in the paint when it wasn't supposed to be there, when you see my scribbly line that's really highly imperfect, it's like, oh, I want people to think maybe there's a human being at the other end of this internet tube.
Oh, I love that. And maybe that might be a good argument for humans to not shy away from the imperfections in their art, because it might be the only thing that differentiates them from what AI spits out down the road. And like, oh, a human did that, Just as much as we, with AI images, we look for the extra hand, extra finger on the hand.
Sometimes I just want to draw that extra finger, and you're like, you know what? Let's do something weird and make an odd choice that somebody questions. Wait, this looks drawn. Wait, did somebody draw that extra finger?
That's good.
Mess with it a little bit.
You should really do that.
I'll keep that in mind for future artwork.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, while we're on the topic, when I speak to artists, I mean, especially visual artists, about AI and what's happening there in that world, there's only one side of the argument that I hear, and that is like FAI.
Yeah.
And where are you in that conversation?
This is something that I've wrestled with a lot as somebody who really likes tech, but also really likes traditional art and values like human contributions to the digital world. I've kind of settled on no AI, not because of AI itself, but because of the larger value systems of the people that own it. Yeah. That's something that I struggle with a lot. But I really butted up against a lot of this in the last year, because at UVic I actually ended up teaching a fine arts course called Creative Practice in the Age of AI. Wow. And it was all about studying artists that embraced it and work with it and seeing the really cool things they do, and sharing that with the students, and then showing practices of people who reject it and don't want it and think there are other ways. And it was really hard to stand in the middle of that and go, what do you think, room? What do you think, group of students? Like, where do you feel, your values lie in relationship to what other people are doing?
That's incredible, though. And what an important, difficult place to stand in that room, but such an important place to have a real conversation with people about that. And what was it? Was it pretty divisive in the class?
Less than I would have thought, actually. A lot of people kind of came out against it by the end of the course. Much to my surprise, there was kind of an assignment at the very beginning of the class where I asked the students, write a positionality statement for me. Just get out a piece of paper and just say what your thoughts are on AI. I'm not going to grade you on spelling. I'm not going to grade you on the coherency of the thought. Just tell me honestly how you're feeling about it. And in the beginning of the class, there was a lot of students who were kind of like, I'm unsure, I think it can do something for me, I
Right.
think there's something to this
Curiosity.
technology. Yeah, and then by the end of the class, there was a lot of people against it. And this was, you know, despite my own feelings on things, I really don't feel like that's relevant in the classroom setting.
Sure,
like, I think it's about allowing students to move deeper into their own feelings, finding why they feel this way, backing that up with information and different examples. And yeah, by the end of the class, most of them weren't happy with the technology and what it could offer them. So it was really interesting. And for me as well, I feel like it kind of moved me further against it, despite the fact that, again, I'm really interested in tech and really want it to be well received and want it to find a good place in our lives. There's just a couple of things about this thing in particular that I feel like need to be discussed on a societal level before we could ever truly embrace it with our full ethics behind it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You know, even if there were something there that could be explored, and just the place that it's coming from, just the ethics are so questionable on a fundamental level, and the sources of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's tough. But yeah, I mean, it's in the world of art. It's been a long time since I've heard any conversation that's more divisive than the AI conversation. Well, it's not even, because there seems to be only one side in the art world at the moment, as far as I can tell. There's only a no way AI, and I totally understand that. And yeah, justified for sure. I want to talk about the stenciling of the 403 stairs again.
For sure.
Because you said something about how you don't want to define or too tightly define art. And I would love to hear if you have a working definition of art, which is probably the hardest question.
I'm already going, don't.
Yeah. Okay, well, I haven't officially asked you yet, though. I'm considering asking you. But, you know, the fact that you are, with your watercolors, you are in tech and video games, and then you walk up the campus steps and are present to the art that's already there, and that bringing people's attention to the art that's already there is also an act of art. Like, how, and you teach about art, where do you draw these lines? And or is part of the practice doing away with as many lines as possible?
I feel like that's probably the closest way to put it. I've really enjoyed, as an artist, trying to find the boundaries of where art is, if that makes sense. Because you know that a painting hung on the wall made with acrylic or oil paint, that's art. That's an art. We can point to that and concretely say and describe what it is. But I'm more interested in the things that are a little bit tricky to define, like, is a magazine art?
Right.
And I think it is. So Sagro Review kind of became my way of proving that. You know, can I point to a bunch of stairs and claim that as art? Well, I probably can, but I have to think about how I'm going to activate that and what case I'm going to make for it. When I was doing my undergrad, a professor said, when students were kind of squabbling over what was and wasn't art, he kind of just said, it's art if the artist says it's art. And I liked how simple that was. Maybe it's not the best answer for everything, but it's kind of my working process. It's like, I'm going to designate this thing art. It doesn't really matter what the thing is. It's my intention that I bring to it. That is, you know, that's the art. Just as any pen I grab off the shelf behind me is just a pen until I say it's art. It's the intention you bring to it.
Yeah, it reminds me of, you know, photography, where there might be, I don't know, a seagull who just defaced the concrete, and it's just sitting there, and one could argue that that is not art as it is, but then a photographer comes and takes a photo of it, and it's like, now, is it art now? You know, and it's because they said it was, and they brought their perspective to it, and like, this is art, and I love that definition. I can work with that. That's yeah, in video games, there's this concept called like the boundary break, which is like,
trying to leave the established map that was created for a level. And I like that as kind of almost like a metaphor or an allegory to this, because it's like by leaving that map, by trying to exit, you're seeking out a different perspective. You're trying to see things in a new way. So I feel like that's a little bit of what I'm trying to do too. Like I want to see a magazine as art. I want to see a stairs as art. I want to see the seagull making a mess as art.
Yeah.
How can we do that is more of my question. And so finding that has kind of been like the through line for my practice.
I love that. Yeah. Like how can we include more into that definition of art?
Yeah.
And that it can only make for a more enriched life, like day-to-day existence too. It says here, and I believe it's true, that you won an award for innovative course design. Is that true?
It is indeed true.
You want to tell me about that?
So in 2024 at UVic, I won the Faculty of Fine Arts Teaching Award for Course Design. And what that is all of the teachers will send in their syllabi to this contest, and then teachers with more experience or higher up folks look over that, and then kind of from that grouping of courses that they were received, they kind of look to see who's doing something a little different, who's trying to engage students in a way that's maybe outside of the box, or that provides new perspectives, or even in terms of like the topic, they were kind of curious about how the topics could be more engaging and interesting. So I had the fortune to create this course called Representing Women in Video Games, which is like a collision of all of my interests at once: gender, art, video games, all in the art history and visual culture department.
You were just designing your dream course.
Exactly. So it was this really cool course where we did more arts-based projects, and we tried to think about the complexity of women's roles in video games, because sometimes feminism may not look like what you think it looks like, or empowerment might not look like what you think it looks like. So instead of getting too caught in the weeds with that, we'd read a lot of discourse, and then I'd send students out to do some sort of project. And I'm really open-ended as to whatever that project could be. I call it the creative project. So that's what that course hinges on. So students could bake a cake, they could cosplay or dress up in an outfit, they could do a study of their action figures, they could play a game and do commentary over it. But the goal of it was to get students to think about and apply the theory that we were learning about this topic in a really hands-on and personal way. Again, in the age of AI, anybody can crank out an essay in, 2 minutes. It's not a very good essay, by the way. But so that's why I'm like more interested in like, what do you actually want to do with your time? And how can you connect whatever it is you want to do to what we've been learning in the class, and show me in the most interesting way that you possibly can. So it was like this type of really arts-based and kind of out-of-the-box course design that they really took a shine to at UVic, which I deeply appreciate them for trusting me with kind of doing this. But the students really respond to it, and it's become such a joy to actually like see and share their work. It's like when people would send me an essay, I'm a black box. I grade the essay, I send it back, and like I kind of get why people would do ChatGPT essays and then call it a day. But instead, I'm like, no, I want you to apply this theory. Show me in the coolest way you can, and then as a class, we're going to get together and we're all just going to swap what we did last week.
That's brilliant.
So it's more fun.
Is this a course that you're actively teaching now as well?
It'll be in spring 2026, but I've been teaching it since 2024.
Makes me want to go back to university.
There you go. I'm waiting for you.
That's super cool. Can you talk to me about having a creative practice? And for some people, it can be very sparse. They feel the creative urge and it comes up and then it manifests. For some people, it's very important to do something every day. And maybe you could speak about your own creative practice, and then maybe just in theory what creative practice can look like for people. Yeah.
Creative practice is so personal and individual, but I think that the one key for me is just, it's about the consistency of making. If you're not making things, you know, if you're an artist that isn't making art, are you an artist? You don't have to make good art. You could just be making art. So that's something I remind myself a lot of.
That's great.
But that's kind of the core of creative practice to me, is just making something, whatever that thing is, every opportunity I can get. A lot of it's checking in with myself. So journaling is the backbone of kind of everything I do. I have a lot of journals. I think the last time I checked, I've been journaling since 2013, and I think I have about 26 or so filled books.
Kidding.
Yeah, so quite a few.
This is a daily practice?
Yeah, daily journaling, just to kind of talk to myself, see what I'm interested in, see what's kind of going on in the headspace. And then that tends to become like the seeds for a lot of other projects. So that's kind of one thing. Another thing is I always just make sure to, again, be making something, but I'm not specific about whatever that is. If it's been a really hectic week and I still have that urge to make something, I kind of want to pat myself on the back. Like, that's hard to do. So it's like, okay, if I'm driving home from work right now and I don't really have much time to make art, what would it look like if I got out of my car right now and took 5 self-portraits?
Wow, yeah.
So it's like, you don't have to make everything like this, you know. Everybody kind of gets into this mindset of like creating masterpieces, and that's not how art actually lives or functions. For me, it's about the daily decisions and what you choose to make, and then a lot of the circumstances and kind of serendipity of life will make a lot of decisions for you, and that kind of ends up being the art. So, you know, I just try and make things, and then those things tend to find their place, but you have to create regularly in order to get to that.
It sounds like there's both a high degree of freedom in what you're talking about, but also discipline in a way too, that you do need to show up, and consistency is important. But whatever it is in that space, like after you're there, whatever happens counts, right?
Exactly. My kind of go-to mental example is the artist Bruce Nauman. He had the idea that if he just went to the studio, whatever happened in the studio that day was art.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, like he got out a camera and like walked in a square for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's art.
Art, yeah.
So like, if that's art, you can make art.
Yeah, I love that. And I love taking it further though. You know, what would happen if I got out of my car right now? And what would happen if I walked backwards home from work instead of walking forwards? I'd call that art. You know, if something's happening, you're being intentional with your creativity. And
that's exactly it. Like, I feel like the artist in society, in kind of my most idealized headcanon of the role, is like the artist is the person who isn't scared to ask what if. They aren't scared to be, you know, the fool or the court jester as well either, right? It's being able to actually just go, you know what, I'm going to make something and it might be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let's go. Hold my drink.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And how courageous that is, especially the first 50 times that you do it, and then just how freeing it is every time after that, you know. And
big time.
Oh, that's cool.
Frequency is key.
Now, here we are in Nanaimo. Do you find that Nanaimo as a place offers the arts community or your own art something that other places wouldn't be able to? Is there anything unique about Nanaimo that offers itself to your art?
Yeah, I do feel like there is. I've kind of had opportunities to live in different places, and I mean, I work in Victoria, so I'm there regularly. But there's something about Nanaimo in that it's just a little bit outside of everything. And I find that kind of outside perspective, again, is what I'm looking for. Again, maybe it's a little bit of that boundary break intentionality. I'm not from Victoria, I'm not from Vancouver, but I can see you both.
Yeah, that's right.
But I feel like it gives me a lot of peace and a lot of space. And I think since there isn't a huge art crowd, there's a core art crowd, but since there isn't a huge one, I feel a lot more willing to take risks and just do whatever I want here, because I don't feel like I'm under a microscope.
Right.
Like a lot of folks in Vancouver, like with the cost of studio rent and you know, rent in general, a risk for somebody there might be a lot higher than for me here. So that's kind of why I've stuck it out here. I like the quiet, I like the pace, but I also like the freedom.
Yeah, yeah. How important is risk-taking to art?
I think it's everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from you. For sure.
For me, it's just it's everything. Like, you have to be able to be brave enough to just kind of say, you know, what if I, you know, did this thing, and then do it, because it isn't just saying it or thinking it. It's actually then from there actually being able to apply it.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel a little less risky here in this kind of small city setting to take that kind of jump. I know if I decide to walk home from the store backwards, I might only have 20 people pointing.
That's right.
As opposed to people live streaming me in Vancouver.
That's right. Yeah. Some good content right there.
Yeah. What's she doing? We don't know.
Well, on the topic of risk, would you be willing to take the risk of bringing us into your creative process on camera and maybe show us a little bit of what you do and your process?
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have some watercolor boards taped here.
Okay.
So why don't we do a little bit of painting?
Okay, that's great. I'm going to move the camera
Sure.
so that we can get a good view of what you're up to.
Sounds good. So I've got this board here with all of these pre-taped little sheets of paper. Now, I always like to do this because I find that, you know, again, we're talking about risk and frequency, and I feel like this is the best way to kind of speak to both of those things. One sheet of paper cut into many, many small sheets of paper means that you're not wasting paper if you happen to not like what you produce. So you're lessening risk, but without, you know, not taking the risk at all. And then, yeah, the trick is just taping them down in a way that you don't end up tearing the paper to ribbons when you are actually getting to the part where you're removing it.
Super cool. I love this. Is this often how you'll set your practice up here? Just like...
It absolutely is. Yeah, I tend to work on these either large boards or taped to the desk behind me. But these large boards allow me a lot of freedom to go out and work and go outside even. So I've got my watercolor trays here. They're not particularly aesthetic trays,
Okay.
but they are really well used. And I don't bother to clean them up because I figure with watercolor, it's just pigment spread around. You need water to activate it. So all this is still good paint.
Yeah, that's right.
Doesn't look too appealing.
Oh, no, it looks pretty awesome.
Nice. So, as I always tell my youngest learners, the secret trick to watercolor painting is water.
Water.
The best part.
That's the secret.
Yeah, the best part is asking a room full of really young children about that. Yeah. And then they pause and they go, "Wait a minute, you just said water. You told us." I'm like, "You're so cool. Smart."
So smart.
So oftentimes, what I'll do when I get started, when I have all of these really intimidating blank squares of paper in front of me, is I just start by putting down some color. I don't overthink it. I don't try to make it into anything. I don't think it really has to be anything at this stage. The other trick with watercolors, after water being the secret ingredient, is the fact that you work in like a lot of layers. So sometimes you won't even end up seeing a lot of what you do at first.
Okay. So that takes some of the pressure off of those first additions to the blank page, hey? So
exactly.
Who knows where it'll end up.
Yeah, and I really like the intuitive process of just kind of seeing what happens, as you could already hear by a lot of the work that I do. So I don't tend to worry about it, and oftentimes I'll even try and distract myself to try and get more interesting compositions. So I'll bring my taped board up in front of, and go sit in front of the TV for a little while and see what I can do, and while I'm kind of spacing out watching the evening news.
And you find that does have an effect? Like
oh, big time.
Wow.
A lot of the time when I'm making stuff, it kind of surprises me because it's like, I didn't set out to make that.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of people will approach watercolors differently. Like a lot of things that, I say that I make, I started out doing this wrong. So I actually didn't study watercolors at all in my art education. I had a friend that was really into them, and he was like, oh, maybe you should try this. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I loved it, and I just kept going back to it. So I've been doing it ever since in my own wrong little way. So don't ever let anybody intimidate you out of trying new things, because I feel like the beginner's mindset of like, I'm just going to pick up this thing and do it is so incredibly valuable. Like, you don't even need to worry about making a thing most of the time. If you can just have the courage to just go for it. A lot of people can't jump that hurdle, so.
Yeah. I've there's sometimes during family events, so we would cover the dining room table just in a big sheet of paper and invite whoever's walking by to just pick up some paint or some pencil crayons and just add something. Oh,
that's so cool.
But it's amazing watching, because I just watch people basically for a living, and so it's amazing to watch some people approach, and you can just feel the inner turmoil and all the things that they're having to face just to bring that pencil to the paper. And sometimes they'll vocalize the challenge and say, I just don't know what to create. And others will just approach and start throwing things on there, not caring whatsoever about what the end product's going to be. It's really interesting to watch. Because right now I'm watching you do this, and like one moment you're over on this square and the next moment you're over here, and I mean, I don't know how much of this is intentional, or you're going with what you feel in that second. And
that's largely it. To use a kind of cheesy internet way of saying it, this is largely vibes based.
Yeah, right, totally.
Right, like I feel like once again, if you can get out of your way, if you can stop being your own enemy, if you can kind of go out of your way to just break past that first, like, well, I don't know what to do, that's when things will emerge, because you've got to start somewhere. And a blank page is, in so many people's defense, really intimidating.
Sure.
So how can you conquer that blank page as quickly as possible?
Right.
That's always like my MO. And you never know where these things are going to end up once you do. So it's like some of these might become little characters. Some of them might become, I don't know, backgrounds in a video game. I don't even know why I'm putting this brown paint in this particular layer. I don't know. It just looked fun there.
Do you find, like, even now in this moment as you do that, like I'm looking at this square and I'm like, wow, that was a really great choice, Do you find that in this format, are you judging yourself at all, or?
I try to be as free of judgment as possible, and might be a little bit cheesy, but I tend to almost think of it as like a little bit of a meditation in some ways, because I'm trying not to think, because my rational brain is screaming, oh goodness, no, don't paint in front of a camera, don't let anybody else see what you're doing, you don't know if you're gonna throw this one in the garbage can. But the creative part of me is like, maybe later, as I put down more layers for this, maybe it'll become something that I really like, or that somebody else really likes. So, you know, it's kind of doing battle with those two shoulder angels, so to speak, you know, of, oh, this is intimidating, I got to think about this, I can't do this too fast, and the other part of me going, no, don't even think about it.
Don't even think about it.
Just go for it. Try not to worry about it. So that's, you know, my way of just dealing with, you know, conquering that blank page problem. But different people have different methods.
Yeah, no, it makes me wonder how much of the really brilliant art has been made with the absence of the editor or the judgmental part. You know, I'm sure it comes and goes, but even within one work. But yeah, I wonder if the most brilliant strokes were always absent of judgment when they were made, you know?
In my personal case, I feel like that is the truth. And something that I always like to keep in mind, I read it in a book at some point, so I couldn't tell you which book, is that creating and editing are two different processes, right? So, you know, I'm creating right now, but when I'm editing later, maybe I'll go, actually, I don't like what I did with this weird red blobby thing. Maybe that actually needed even more red, right? So editing, Amber will come over and go, okay, well, yeah, that was the red that you needed, you know? So it's not that you're trying to shut the critic up. You're trying to tell them to wait their turn.
Yeah, and give them their own space too. And maybe that's part of the process, is you need to give the critic its own space so that it can trust that it will be heard at some point. And that's the way to really keep it quiet in this moment.
That's kind of it. It's like, you know, everything that's going on emotionally while you're making, I feel like is really valid, but it's like, is it the right, you know, time and space for this kind of comment? And in the beginning, when you start making something, that isn't really the space to start with criticism. Right. Because, well, if people are listening who are writers, you know, there'll be that classic case of you write a sentence and, oh, well, I could have said it this way, and suddenly you're revising one sentence over and over again, when instead you could have written a paragraph and then fixed that one sentence later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, you know, how can you make this easier for yourself in terms of the creation process? The critic will still be waiting there when you give them a chance to speak.
You know, that's great. I've actually just recently adopted a similar approach to songwriting, where, you know, I'll give myself 1 hour to write the song.
Smart.
1 hour, and then I just, whatever it takes to get that song finished in that hour. And then there's no time. You really can't edit and create a song within an hour. You can only create. And then the hour after that can be editing. And I'm finally getting songs done, you know?
That's so good. Sounds like you're really nailing like process and, like, again, putting the critic in his place.
Yeah, because if you combine the two in the same time, you could go a whole life without actually producing something, because you're just trying to get it perfect in your brain before you actually get it out.
Yeah, and as a very like self-critical person, sometimes I'll add in even extra challenges to myself when I'm working, like, okay, well, now that you've mastered not caring what colors you put down, what if you didn't rinse your brush in between? Like, what if you made this really hard? How can you use up that color instead of like worrying about that, instead of going, oh, but I wanted to use purple, but my brush is loaded with red. Right. Well, work with it.
Yeah, work with it.
Find a way.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool, actually.
It's a challenge. Yeah. Well, that'd be like, I guess, I'm not sure which, if you play an instrument, but, you know, if your instrument's out of tune, can you play it anyway?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Could you make a song work in that context?
I love that.
Might be a little challenging depending on the instrument.
Very much. But you have to be it really brings you present to that particular moment, because now you're dealing with something that may not be replicated again the next time you sit down, you know.
Exactly. It's trying to find ways to, like, I don't know, stay playful, I think. That's also, like, really important.
That's a great word and a great point. The playfulness. The playfulness is just, I'm learning, so much more important than I ever ever gave it credit for. You know, it's.
Mm-hmm. I feel like watercolors are really good for that as well, because it's like you can try and control this, and you can to an extent, but you know, you get to a point where it's like, this is water, it is just going to flow where it wants, so maybe don't worry about it too much.
That's right. To what extent do you think, are you unconsciously or consciously treating this as one cohesive piece? All, you know, like maybe balancing something over here, or you don't want too much pink here, so you do it over there and there, or are you treating them like individual pieces?
You know, I feel like I kind of vacillate back and forth, because I start out thinking of each one as like an individual, but then I get to a point where, oh, maybe they are kind of a grouping. But I find it doesn't really shine through until the tape comes off, because like the tape is such a vibrant like barrier.
Of course.
So it's like that bright green, right? So
I'd actually forgotten about that, but of course you've got a very prominent color right here.
But yeah, working in this way where you do like, I think a lot at once, allows you to think about that relationship between the paintings, between, you know, themselves, but between you, between like everything else you've done, because like I've cut, I don't know, 50 of these tiny little squares, so, you know, then it kind of gets in my head after a bit, oh, what if I just did, what is this, 5, 10, 15 more, then there'd be a group of 30, so yeah, I don't know, I tend to keep it, again, that's the critic's job. The critic might go at the end, no, that was actually still only a group of 10. And then the critic is the one who has, you know, all of that art school education and all of those concerns with aesthetics and what tells me what looks good and why. But the one that's making is going, oh, maybe these are related. Maybe they're not.
Maybe they're not,
I don't know.
Let's not think about that too much right now.
That's later Amber's problem.
That's later Amber, future Amber.
Oh,
that's so cool.
And again, I'm not really concerned with doing things right here. I'm kind of doing a blend of techniques. This is a little bit of wet on wet, so that's where you put down wet color and then add extra color to it that's also still in this really swimmy state.
Okay, gotcha.
But dry brushing is another interesting technique that I might break out as like the layers start to dry, so that's when I get all of as much water as I can off my brush, and then maybe I pick up some of this red, then I try and get as much water as I can off of that. Usually I'll also keep a piece of paper towel for blotting. And then when it has a little bit less water in the brush, it tends to yield like a really concentrated kind of effect. It yields a little bit more control.
More defined stroke too.
So these are the two primary techniques I will kind of use back and forth, and that's what I really like about the simplicity of this, is like just knowing a couple of things, like knowing the secret ingredients, water, knowing not to be a critic, knowing that you just kind of have to fill up a lot of pages. I feel like that's kind of enough to keep in your head to just get started and experiment. Like again, I've created so many of these where I'm not trying to make anything in particular, but again, now they're backgrounds for like an upcoming video game, and I've scanned them in and cleaned them up a little.
I would find it very difficult to, you know, since that is a truth and that has happened, and some of your watercolors are backgrounds for video games, I'd have trouble not thinking about that while I was creating, you know, like, could this be one? Could this be a background? Could this...
That is true, and that is really easy to fall into that like type of thinking, but that's again the critic thinking, and I try and put that in the back seat while I'm getting started, because it's like, well, these could be anything. They kind of have like a lot of potential to them, so instead of thinking about the future potential, like, how can I think about what's just here right now, and how can I work with that? Whatever they might become after is really cool, but maybe that's not for me to know quite yet. And I mean, in that way, I kind of think about that acceptance as being really similar to how I like work with students. Like, I'm seeing student A do something really cool right now, and maybe I think they should keep doing that, but maybe they don't think they should keep doing that. So I have to have the wherewithal to like suggest maybe they should follow something, but like at the same time have the acceptance of maybe that's just a cool blip for them, maybe that's the learning that goes on to become something else. I don't really get to dictate that. So
wow, so there's a similar letting go process here with the watercolors and in your classroom. And
yeah, it's like an exercise of like loose control. Like, you know what you want to do and you know what you're aiming for, but you don't need to be super direct about it. You don't need to worry so much. It's going to work out how it works out, and maybe that's cooler than you think.
Do you think that space, that mentality, is that a skill, a practice skill in itself, to conjure that space and to maintain it? Does it, or rather, is it easier for you now to live in that balance than it used to be?
I think doing activities like this is kind of what got me to think that way, to kind of give me a hands-on way to, you know, illustrate that the unexpected can be really engaging or beautiful, or, you know, just otherwise not what you were thinking in the moment, but what, you know, what is. So I really like that, and I feel like it actually just takes a lot of pressure off of me as well, like as a creative person, because it's like, you know, you don't have to worry about creating something so thoughtful or deep. It's just going to happen if you sit here with the materials and actually just push the paint around.
Sure makes it more enjoyable too, doesn't it?
Yes, for sure.
Cool. Thank you so much for bringing us into your world here, and it's such a great conversation. I really appreciated it.
Of course. Well, I'm happy to see how it turned out, because I wasn't sure at the beginning, so it kind of feels like a nice way to segue off.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for joining us. So we're going to wrap it up here. We'll connect again soon. Be well, be wild, and be yourself every once in a while. And thank you, Amber.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for being here.
All right. Okay, now here's this great moment where I'm going to just